Hey guys, welcome back. So now getting into the conclusion of Three Jokers, this is a story about integrity. And I know people are torn on whether they like it or not, but I feel like everybody's getting something different out of this story. And for me, integrity was the one thing that stood out. So let's get into it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week. And don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so jumping back in, we start off in the Batcave with Bruce, Barbara, and Jason, who at this point has spread out all the information of both the previous known Jokers and the remaining Jokers, which recently has gone down from 3 to 2, with Jason Todd killing the clown Joker, which at this point now leaves the criminal and the comedian. But as they're sorting out their collected information, both through their investigation and the information that was given to Jason by the criminal Joker and the comedian, as far as the larger plan to create a better Joker, at this point they're aware that Jason was supposed to be on this list as well. But because Jason didn't respond to the rebirth processing like criminal Joker had intended, he just didn't make the cut. But then also, while they're looking at the pictures of the three Jokers laid out on the table, Jason then makes it clear that there's two Jokers left, and the moment that he sees either one of them, criminal or comedian, they're catching the same fade that the clown did. And Jason expresses that he's willing to do this because Bruce is too weak, and that immediately strikes a nerve with Bruce, because there's plenty of times that he wanted to, and even more times that he could have, but he didn't. But really, because he didn't, that doesn't make Bruce weak, but instead his integrity just upholds a different belief. And albeit that belief does come with its different problems, like the Joker coming back again and again, but to stay true to any kind of belief, it takes an immense amount of strength. And just because someone else doesn't see things the same way, it doesn't mean that they're weak. It just means that they're holding true to a different ideal, which for Jason is something that has changed a number of times over the years. So who truly has the stronger integrity? But after this, Jason then brings up the alternative, which is much of what Bruce had expressed before to Barbara. Because if the plan is to arrest the remaining Jokers, then Jason and Barbara will have to testify, and from there, everybody's identity's blown. And at this time, Barbara is just trying to get Jason to see that Bruce, he wants to help. But Jason, he just doesn't see how. And then on top of that, he shifts his argument with Bruce to where now it's about how Bruce has been helping them before. And it's at this point where Bruce, he disengages, he understands that Jason doesn't understand. And as a result, this shifts very early on the way that this briefing, if you will, continues. Because after this, when they go back to the table and Bruce starts to go through the main three Jokers, he mentions the criminal, who was likely the one from Death in the Family, with him being more calculated and meticulous in his approach. And then he mentions the clown, which is the one that Jason killed, and how he was more of your campy Joker, who we're more familiar with as your Golden Age Joker or your Adam West versus Cesar Romero. But in the case of the comedian, he has a longer sadistic streak than either of the others, which makes it more likely that he's the original Joker, and he had first created the other two, to whom from there went on to create many more. But here's where we see what I was talking about with this briefing taking a turn that I don't believe that it would have had Jason and Bruce not gotten into that argument. Because in this moment, Bruce asked Jason to put away the Red Hood and begin a path to a new identity. And in response, Jason said no. And then right after that, when Jason asked Bruce, is there anything else that he had to share, Bruce then closed his folder and he said no, which we know is not true, because in the previous issue, we had seen he had more information concerning Alaska, and we'll talk about a bit more of that later. But for now, I will say one, I truly believe that the details in that folder is the reason why Bruce had gotten so mad at Jason when he said he wanted to kill the last two Jokers. But even more so, there's a bit of quiet frustration that we're getting from Bruce, because he knows that Jason couldn't handle knowing what's in that additional folder. And it's because of that Bruce realizes that there are some things he just cannot share with Jason. And it's kind of sad, because in this moment, Jason, he misses the opportunity just to grow into a better version of himself. And Bruce recognizes that. But right after this, they then get an alert from Blackgate because of Joe Chill, who had been recently broken out by the comedian Joker. And when they go there, Bruce goes in alone and he checks out Joe's cell. And when he does, he finds a stack of letters that Joe had been writing for some time, but he had never mailed out, which then sparks his curiosity to why he's writing all these letters and not sending them. And after that, he's then told to ask Reverend Evans, who's been Joe's counselor / advisor during his time of incarceration. But also, while this is happening, outside you have Jason and Barbara, And they have this moment to where it really feels like Jason, he wants to build up this conversation to where he can work his way through to talking to Barbara and eventually talking about that recent kiss. And he starts off by letting Barbara know like, okay, look, I messed up. And from there she just goes in like, yeah, you messed up. You shot the Joker and you put all of us like in this hard situation. And because of that, we have to let you walk away with murder. Because it was either that or everyone testifies and takes off their mask. And of course then Jason, he apologizes and said that he won't do anything like that again. But then after that, Barbara makes it clear that of course she hopes that he doesn't, but in the case that he does, she will reveal her identity, take the stand, and testify against Jason. And really, like, after that, conversation's over. And it's in this moment where you can see it really sinking in with Jason that his desire to get even, that it had costed him the potential of something that he could have had with Barbara that he didn't even know was there. And had Jason taken a similar route to Barbara and become better afterwards, then that connection would have been like crazy strong. But because he chose to kill the clown Joker, he had forced Barbara away from him, and now it's like he's realizing the cost of what you truly pay for only focusing on what you want without considering the cost or repercussions. But there's plenty of regret to go around, because now we go to the conversation between Batman and Reverend Evans. Because for years, Joe Chill has been writing these letters addressed to Bruce Wayne apologizing for the murder of his parents, which also Joe had begun to write long before he had fell ill, which then shows that he had felt his remorse and his regret for a number of years prior to this point. But within this shuffle of letters addressed to Bruce Wayne, there's also one addressed to Batman, to where inside there's an invitation to the Monarch Theater and a ticket to see the Mark of Zorro, which is where Joe's regret had begun the night that he killed Bruce's parents. But when Bruce, Barbara, and Jason arrived there after a long quiet ride, cause wasn't nobody talking, like the awkward silence was crazy. But when they get there, the marquee is titled "One Night Only, the New Joker." And from there, they quietly make their way in, with Barbara taking the roof, Jason taking like the side door, and Bruce making his way in through the front. But when they first go inside, we first follow Bruce, who makes his way to the main theater, and when he does, the projector cuts on and we hear the voice of the comedian Joker, who's narrating much of what we had seen at the conclusion of book 2, when he had broken Joe Chill out of Blackgate and told him to confess on camera why he killed Thomas and Martha Wayne. But then also while this is playing on the big screen, Batman, his attention is then called to the criminal Joker, who has Joe Chill there tied to a rope in a chair. And also at this time, we see like with Barbara, who had entered from the roof, and Jason, who had like taken the side door, like while this is happening, they're being bombarded by a bunch of other Jokers who had met them at their point of entrance. And it's here where criminal Joker tells Batman like his reasoning for choosing Joe Chill. And the way that he does this with mentioning Barbara and Jason and saying how they couldn't be the better Joker, he goes on to say how Barbara had too much heart, and in the case of Jason, he lacked sophistication. And that's why criminal Joker had picked Joe Chill, the killer. And it really makes you think for a moment, like the whole idea of 3 Jokers and how that idea really revolves more around Barbara, Jason, and Joe. Because really between those 3, they have like the strongest undertone narrative throughout these 3 books. But after this, when Bruce makes his way up top, closer to criminal Joker and Joe Chill, he quickly sees that the Joker is strapped with dynamite. Like, I'm talking about some old school dynamite, like the Acme Acres type stuff. But even still in this case, a significant amount and enough to bring the place down. But it's also here where we see the Joker move Joe over this container filled with the Joker toxin to where the criminal Joker expresses like the deeper underlining to the better Joker. Because with Jokerizing Joe Chill, it's like that way he'll be consolidating the things that mean the most to Batman, with inducting Joe Chill and making him a Joker, while also mentioning the Jokerizing process having the high probability of curing Joe from cancer, effectively trading off his physical health for his mental health. But also while they're having this talk and Jason and Barbara are fighting for their lives in the background, like on the big screen you can still hear the audio that's playing from the short film that was made by the comedian Joker. And it's within that dialogue that we hear Joe Chill confess that he had hated Thomas and Martha Wayne because he believed that them being rich or successful, that had taken away from people like himself, which had made him angry and bitter. And it wasn't until after killing them that he had noticed the young Bruce, which initially made him regret taking their lives in front of their child, but then later for him it got worse when he truly found out who Thomas and Martha Wayne really were, and how much they were really doing to close that gap and to help the less fortunate people of Gotham. But while that's playing in the background, Batman makes his move on criminal Joker, which then causes him to drop his lighter in the chemicals, and the Joker just cuts the rope, sending Joe Chill to fall in. And when this happens, like, this is really one of those moments that separates Bruce from Jason. Because like Jason in this instance, like if he had the choice to save the Joker, he'd have been like, is there a way we can make him fall faster or not come out at all? Like, had Joe Chill done to Jason what he had did to Bruce. But instead, in the case of Bruce, he shoots his grapple and he swings through and he saves Joe Chill. And with swinging across, he knocks Criminal Joker out through the old brick wall in what appears to be like Crime Alley, and with doing so effectively knocking the Joker out. But initially in this conversation between Batman and Joe Chill immediately tells Batman like, I know who you are, I heard about you in Blackgate. And many of those stories I'm sure were exaggerated, because initially Joe thinks that Batman is going to kill him, but he quickly realizes soon after that he's not, after saving him again from some falling bricks, to where then Joe's like, thank you, and Batman's like, you're welcome. And really it's just like another example where Bruce has to do the very thing that he knows that Jason is incapable of, and in no way does it make him weak, but at the same time on Bruce's end, he has his losses and gains as well. But then it's also here where Criminal Joker gets right back up, and at this point he's getting ready to pull the tab on the explosives and just blow everything to Kingdom Come. And I mean not literally Kingdom Come, but he was ready to let off this bomb and just kill everybody here. But that plan isn't seen through because he's then shot in the head by the comedian. And when the comedian kills Criminal Joker, he doesn't keep the gag rolling. He's just like, and then there's one, take me away. And he just throws his hands up like, we're done here, lock me up, let's go. And from there, the comedian Joker is effectively arrested. But while this is going on, you then have another moment with Jason and Barbara, and the look on her face, it says it all. Because it's here when all this is done, he finally gets around to asking her about how the two of them are going to move forward. And for Barbara, like Jason's detachment from everything that's been going on here and like just processing the recent events, like you can tell she's nearly disgusted about Jason bringing this up. And so translation, that's a hard no, buddy. But after this, when we see Batman ride along with the Joker on his way to Arkham, and the Joker calls Batman by his first name, and with doing this, just really getting it out of the way that he knows that he's Bruce Wayne, but he would never just outright make that public information, because if he did, Bruce would likely stop being Batman. And it's here where Batman asks the Joker like, what does he want? And before he really gets to it, like the comedian does a rundown of what the other Jokers wanted, because the Clown Joker, he wanted to laugh at others' pain, and really you can throw a rock and hit any villain that wants to do that. And in the case of the Criminal Joker, like his plan was doing the most, and the comedian tells him like, what's the point of having a Joker who has a first name, last name, and a whole background? Because at that point it's really not even the Joker anymore. But then the comedian tells him that he had put the idea of Joe Chill in the mind of the other two Jokers by suggesting him for this better joke idea. But the comedian knew how all of that would play out, because at the end of the day he knew what Joe Chill had did was like the deepest scar or the deepest wound that Batman had had. And with doing this, it really takes everything all the way back to that initial concept of both the physical scars and the invisible scars. And even how some may seem impossible to heal, which in the case of Bruce is what made him Batman in the first place, with Joe Chill killing his parents and him becoming Batman so that wouldn't happen to anyone else. But with letting all of this play out the way that the Criminal Joker wanted, the comedian had helped Bruce heal that deepest scar, so that now there would be nothing left but the Joker. And as elaborate as the plan may have been, like, it was pretty genius, because now that Bruce has closure, it's like, what makes him Batman now? Aside from the Joker. And from there, it's not like you can use that same trick on the Joker and create closure for these two, because from here the Joker just wants to keep that wound open for as long as possible until they both die together. But after this, we then see that Bruce, he spends time with Joe Chill, and even up to the moment that Joe Chill dies. And even after that, he goes to visit Joe Chill's grave. But I can't help but to think, like, throughout the course of three Jokers, and perhaps even more so towards the end, but I feel like there's been this huge comparison between Bruce and Jason. And it's almost like there's an underlining story of how to heal and how to never be healed. How to not heal. Like Stay Scarred, the trilogy. Because from here, when we go over to Barbara and Jason, she's continuing to work through her issues, burning out treadmill at the treadmill. But then in the case of Jason, he leaves a note on her door, pretty much asking for her to give the two of them a chance. And in the letter, it says like, if you don't see this, then I know that that's your answer. But as it goes, the letter falls off the door, janitor cleans it up, so she never seen it. But I really feel like the bigger part here is that Jason, he wants the rewards of doing the right thing after he had done the wrong thing. And it's not so much the idea of him getting a second chance, but you can't choose yourself over others and then expect the charitable reward after. But then after this, we see a conversation between Bruce and Alfred, and it kind of overlaps from Bruce in the cave and him actually going to Alaska. And it's like at this point, Alfred tells Bruce like, do you think we'll ever know who the Joker really is? And Bruce is like, I knew who the Joker was 1 week after we met, cause I'm Batman. Like, he just had to say it though. But what's crazy is that Bruce tells Alfred that he'll never tell the Joker's true identity, because if he does, then the press and everyone else will find his family. And in addition to that, so will the Joker. But from what we'd seen, the Joker, he already knows where his family is. It at least seems that way. Like the Joker's imagined going back and seeing them, and actually speaking to them like we'd seen in book 2. But in the conclusion, we're given the idea when Bruce comes here to Alaska that the Joker doesn't know that his family's still alive. And I don't know, I kind of feel like book 2 tells us that he does know, just that he's never went to see them. Beyond him playing out that scenario in his mind, but never actually speaking to his wife and son. And it's really just like Bruce and the Joker, they just kept with the cover up of her faking her death and starting her life over in Alaska. And it's a crazy ending, man. Like, Three Jokers is really a story about integrity. Cause Bruce is keeping the Joker's secret to protect his family, the Joker's keeping Bruce's secret to keep Batman, and in the case of Barbara and Jason, they just go in two complete opposite directions after dealing with trauma and living with scars that can't be healed in a way that's either positive or negative. And so now real quick, I want to give a shout out to the Patreons, and we got some new patrons for the month. So shout out to Kendall M, Gabriel K, Jojo Palmaria, and I hope I said that right. And we also got Blur D, Tyrone M, and Josh B. So special thanks to you guys. Thank you for joining the Patreon squad and supporting the spills. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And I kind of want to go into an afterthought of like the expectation versus the delivery of Three Jokers, because of what we expected from Darkseid War in the beginning of DC Rebirth, because it's usually where expectations aren't met, like that's where disappointment sinks in. But for me, I've kind of gone back and looked at this story with a bit of tunnel vision, and all in all, it's just a Batman Joker story. I think it's incredible, but I also want to know what you guys think. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again in the next one. Alright. Later.